This just in, multiple Democratic sources confirmed to Fox News that Democratic governors yesterday held a call to discuss the latest developments regarding President Biden's 2024 re-election campaign in the wake of the president's extremely rough performance in Thursday's debate with former President Donald Trump. Now, the call was organized by Democratic Governors Association DGA Chair Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. Sources familiar with the call described it as a forum where the governors could discuss what was going on with Biden, but that there was no serious talk of urging the president to step aside. One source characterized it as a gripe session. Sources also tell us that the Biden campaign was aware of the call ahead of time. From a national Democratic official familiar with the call, quote, Democratic governors are some of the president and vice president's most proactive and vocal supporters because they've seen how the Biden-Harris administration's accomplishments are directly benefiting their residents. The Biden-Harris team is in constant communication with the governors and their teams, including about yesterday's meeting. News of the call was first reported about 90 minutes ago by CNN's Jake Tapper. Kaylee, I want to get your thoughts on that. What say you about, let's take the response about how there's always the communication and they're in great standing. And what do you note about this call?
It's inconceivable to me. I mean, former President Trump, I was around him a lot after two debates. I was around him after events. He was constantly picking up the phone and calling allies, governors, senators, congressmen. And the notion that you've had a disastrous debate performance, widely panned by CNN, by MSNBC, by your allies, by Joe Scarborough, that you wouldn't pick up the phone and call governors? I mean, why not is the question. Is he, number one, too stubborn? Is he, number two, unable to call them? I mean, those are the questions that come to mind because it makes no sense. The only thing I would postulate is maybe there's more going on behind the scenes than we know. Maybe he is really considering stepping aside. Maybe that explains why you wouldn't call the governors. That's the only thing I can postulate.
And Lisa, another interesting thing to note as well. So as we mentioned, it was organized by Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, but who also appeared on this network to defend Biden post-debate. So what say you about him being the organizer behind this call?
Well, I just want to say real quick, in looking at these images of Joe Biden, I finally agree with the sentiment, orange man bad. So just want to put that on there. Look, I've had bad spray tans too, so, it happened. Okay, but anyway. All right, so, look, I am loving watching this implosion from the left because the media, the left, they're all content with lying to us about Joe Biden's condition until he wobbled on the stage and America saw what is actually happening, the mental vacancy that is Joe Biden. I will say, I think Republicans need to expand the line of attack beyond Joe Biden's age. The country is falling apart, not because Joe Biden is 81, but because of Democrats' policies. Look at California, for instance. I guarantee Gavin Newsom was on that phone call. He's 56 years old. California has some of the highest taxes in the nation, yet they have a multi-billion-dollar budget deficit, the highest unemployment as well. You look at the homeless crisis, the crime crisis. So Gavin Newsom at 56 years old has driven California into the ground. So this country would be falling apart if it was Gavin Newsom, if it was any of those other people on the call, Kamala Harris, you name them. Democrat policies are a failure. Republican policies win, which is why the country was so much better off under Donald Trump. And we need to be again, fingers crossed, God willing.
And Julie, but to this point, so the landscape is that the Biden team has refused to acknowledge the very prevalent questions about the president's mental acuity and fitness. We're sort of seeing almost a theatrical response, right?
Yes.
Oh, he's too pale here, he's too tan, right? We're seeing very discernible, things going into play. Okay, we're going to do this and do this. And then against that, we now have the Democratic governors that had a gripe session. That seems unprecedented. And yet when you look at what's happening in real life, there is a very large theater occurring surrounding the president. And now apparently Democrat governors have taken notice too.
Right.
Are they worried?
I don't know. I am. I mean, unlike Biden and Lisa, I've never gotten a spray tan, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't affect your mental ability and your cognitive ability. I mean, Lisa's always been very sharp, whether she's pale or fake tan.
I agree.
I just don't understand what we can possibly trust. I think this really is just going to come down to trust. And he is like a ventriloquist, and he is not speaking his words. So what we are seeing in the White House and what we see every time he reads teleprompter, he no longer ad-libs. He no longer speaks off the top of his head, which is why that debate performance was such a disaster. He was prepped for days, and when you have mental decline, cognitive decline, it's very hard to memorize all of that. So when he has to speak off the top of his head, Tyrus was just saying to me that he's like the Milli Vanilli of American presidents, because the words coming out of his mouth are not his words, and that's the person you want to elect for president. That's scary.
He's a teleprompter
Doctor,
president.
I want to get your thought on something specific, and it's about the canary in the coal mine. So it started with a while ago with, one late night comedy host saying, like, guys, we need to shape up. We need to shape up with our policies, and this president's not cutting it. And now we've seen one by one, prominent Democrat Party officials or prominent spokespeople in the media that have started to raise serious questions, including CNN's Jake Tapper, who says there is a theater, a cover-up happening. What say you that the dominoes are falling?
Well, I think it's very disingenuous, and it's based on them thinking it's so obvious they better do something to show that they have integrity that they don't have, because this has been apparent for years. This isn't suddenly apparent now. To a medical eye, I've been talking about this for months and years. It's a cover-up campaign, and to your point, and to Julie's point earlier, it's being led by the Biden team. I mean, we can see that he's being led off stage. We can see that everything's read from a teleprompter. By the way, there's a long history of this in the White House, going back to FDR, to Woodrow Wilson, to Nixon, who was on a million medications. You know where this wasn't the case? It was not the case with President Trump, with Kayleigh McEnany in the White House. You walk in there, he talks extemporaneously. He's not reading off a teleprompter. I asked her when I interviewed him, does he need to see the question? She says, no, he just rip off the questions to him. That's what America is used to now. This is the exact opposite.
Bingo.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.